transaction. You know, as a little kid, I always was observant. So one day I found some drugs. And when I found some drugs, I knew what it looked like. I knew how to, I thought I knew how to package it. I thought I knew how, you know, I never knew about weighing it and this and that. I just was eyeballed it. I kind of bagged it all up the way I saw it when I used to see my stepfather, but I was giving it away, actually. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And while I was doing that, it created a clientele. And when it created a clientele and shit, I just knew I started growing bigger and bigger. And like, I didn't even think about re-up money. Like, how was I going to get new drugs in this thing? Only thing I thought about was just selling it. And every day me and Jay would just spend the money, buy sneakers, buy clothes, you know what I'm saying? Go to McDonald's. And that was the thing. And that set me out. So when I finished that, and then with nowhere else to go, I created a clientele. And then that's when Spanish, a good friend of mine that watched me grow up, Spanish Jose, which Jay mentions in The Reason Moved Out, you know what I'm saying? He approached me. He approached me with a good deal, and showed me the real game on how it works. And I never ever looked back from there. That was it from there. And everywhere I traveled, I made sure I had Jay with me, because things got bad for me in New York at one time. My mom saw me in the streets. She saw me taking this turn. She tried to relocate me. So I moved out of New York to Jersey, Trenton. And when I got in Trenton, it was more saturated. It was way more saturated with drugs and hustlers in Trenton. And, you know, that was just like the college of hustling for me when I got to Trenton. But after that, man, went back to New York, told Jay, you know, how I had things going on in Trenton, and told him, look, man, in no time he was in Trenton living. We was living with each other.
So as you're rising up like that, you've got to get in some scrapes together. Have you got any stories of scrapes you and Jay were in?
What you mean scrapes?
Situations.
Oh, man, I mean, situations come with that. You know what I'm saying? But depending on who you are and how you do business, that's how situations go. That's how situations occur. The few situations, the minor situations that came, I never, ever let Jay be involved. Any situations that had something to do with dealing with, you know, coming on the streets and it was going to result to violence, I would never have Jay around with me. And that's under no circumstances. So, you know, I remember getting into shootouts over territory in Jersey and told Jay to go home for a little while until things, you know, calmed down. But that was just like a situation where I wouldn't want my little brother in. So most of the situations we probably had that I had, man, I handled on my own and didn't want him involved. Because you got to understand, like, when we left New York as teenagers, you know what I'm saying? That was one thing that his mom had asked me, like, you know, make sure that my boy is okay. Make sure that my son is all right. You know what I'm saying? So I would have never put him on the front line of anything that has something to do with violence. Plus, that's how my mom looked at him as a little son, and he looked at us as my little brother. So I wasn't going to let nothing happen to him.
So, you know, earlier you said you met at school and now you've jumped. How long were you guys doing these things together?
Seventh grade, 6th, 7th grade. Been hustling since 7th grade, yeah. From petty hustling, like I said, I didn't really start to see any real money until I left New York in '88. I left New York in 1988 when things was like at its peak of the crack era. And ain't look back.
You ain't look back.
Ain't look back. I mean, it only got bigger. And like I said, even down to the violence of me getting shot for him. When you mentioned in the title, And these are the things that come with that street and the drug game. It was unfortunately that my connect set me up, but like I said, in certain, in past interviews, man, it wasn't about me trying to be no hero or nothing. It's just the simple thing that I was responsible for him. So I had to get him out of there, and I ended up getting shot.
All right, before we get to that, so it sounds to me like, and I've heard you previously talk about Jay Z as being more like a chess player. What was he contributing to your business operation?
I mean, as a little brother, the small things. Hey, I need you to do that. Hey, I need you to do this. Go collect that money from them over there. Hey, he would have his little, build his little crew up and participate too as well. I would never say he didn't hustle at all. And he showed up when I needed him. When it was time when I needed him, he showed up. He had definitely had a different way of hustling than me. But he showed up. There's times that I don't screwed up some money. It's definitely times when I don't screwed up some money, and he actually helped me get it back to where it's supposed to be. So, but it was always like a small task, what I'm saying, I would ask him. I wouldn't really put him out there on the front line of doing anything. And if I would have asked, he would have had no problem doing it. What I'm saying? I would never say he was a punk or nothing, but he wouldn't have no problem doing it. I think he would have did it just to prove it to me. You know what I'm saying? But,
Would you say that it was you and him running it, and then you had other people working for you guys?
Say again?
Would you say that it was you and him running the business, and then you had other people working? You had other people working for you guys. That's how it was structured.
Well, it was four of us. It was a team of us. It was me, Jay, an uncle, and a good friend named Panama. It was always four of us, and everybody had a role to play. Me, I was more on the front line of being out on the strips, hand to hand, with the customers, being around the customers most of the time, hand to hand. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to see and feel it. It was some type of energy that I used to have for this. Jay, his hustle tactic was always having someone to work for him. You know what I'm saying? He definitely, I don't know if it was, to show that he was, that he was more business minded when it came to that kind of hustling that way. You know what I'm saying? You got to understand that he had to be away. He was away a lot of times in the studio going to do, working on his music. So it was good for him to have people working for him while he's gone. People working for you is also a cut of your money. So, that's how he didn't mind. But me, I was just more in the front line of like, we're going to need all of this.
So would you say that it was your collective skill set that enabled you to have a good run in that business? Because you see many people get in that business and they fall quite fast.
I would say I always had a gut feeling for something to go wrong. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it was. I always had a gut feeling, an intuition about when things ain't going right for me to make a different, turn it in a different direction, try something new, move to another territory. So most of the time when I feel that way, just like things was going for me bad in New York, I ended up in Jersey. When I felt like things was going bad and I wasn't getting a fair deal out of in Trenton, I moved to Maryland. I set up an operation in Maryland. So it's those things that saved me. When I felt like I don't want to sell drugs anymore, period, and stopped in Maryland, and that's when it did. That's when the worst came, when I actually stopped. You know what I'm saying? 3 years later, after I stopped, I ended up getting locked up. So that's more further into my case. But it just always was an intuition about me, having intuitions and making different choices. That's what made me have a longer run in the game. Just listening to how they used to talk on my trial, and I seen a few police officers and law enforcement agencies that got on the stand that said, they wasn't able to really keep up with me. because I never really stayed in one spot. I never sat down. I was always out looking for a new territory, looking for a new area, looking for new money. So yeah, you know.
When you see movies that portray this story, it's usually like the same story arc, Scarface or whatever. There's like the glitz and the glamour at the beginning, and then, you know, there's like the peak. But then everyone's getting addicted and everyone's getting paranoid, and then the feds start following people around, and then there's the consequences. So you've described the first phase brilliantly, you know, the rise and the mechanics of the operation. Could you get into more detail about the second phase where you're peaking and then the feds start to come in, and any stories from that period?
The second phase is the enjoying it. The second phase is enjoying it. You know what I'm saying? Enjoying your work, your riches. You know what I'm saying? The cars, the jewelry, the women, all that comes with it. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely the second phase. Without the second phase, there would be no reasonable doubt. You get what I'm saying? That's what reasonable doubt is all about. You know what I'm saying? So, that, you know, that was that made us. You know what I'm saying? That's why that album is so important to me. That's why I say that's my whole life on record right there. Because that was the rise. That was everything that we've done right there on the album that he put right on the album. But the fall, when it started, the fall comes when it's coming. We all know this in the game. We all know this in the hustling game. The fall is coming. This is why they say, yo, put away your money for, you know, in case something happened, because that's just the normal legalities of this game. And whether you're going to have enough to get you out of there is going to, you know, determine. It's just on certain levels. You know, I've been through a lot of state cases. I had a lot of state cases where, you know, I had the best lawyers and I'm in and out of court. Like, I'm laughing at them. But when you get to a different level on a federal level, it's just way different. Like I said, my thing was when I quit hustling, you know, I just one day out of the blue just quit hustling. Like I felt like those vibes. I felt that again. I felt like everything was out of control. I felt like everybody had too much money. It just was an eerie feeling. So I pack up, count up a bunch of cash, and I leave. And I left. When I left 3 years later, 4 years later, here come the feds. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it works. You know, sometimes the people, when you quit, the people that still continue, you know what I'm saying? They still have your name circulating and things. And, you know, and that's how, unfortunately, that I ended up in there. But the thing was, where they put me at in the case was, you know, on a hierarchy. like my damage was done when they came and got me and quit. You feel me? I never say they had the right man. I mean, I give it to them. They had the right man. But what went wrong is they just had the wrong time. I had enough time to be out of this game to let the judge see that I had no more parts of this street stuff at all. That, you know, and shout out to the judge that, you know, seeing through that. You know, it clearly showed that I had no parts of the game, no parts of the street, and they didn't lock me up.
Yeah, so young people watching this, they don't have to catch you with the stuff. Statute of limitations, if there's someone from your past who says you've done a deal with them, they've got you. In my ecstasy importation case, I'd quit, and then a year later, they got me after I'd quit. And they had people, yeah.
I mean, they operate on a different scope, you know what I mean? And this is what I try to tell these kids today. And it's like now with all this questioning about Jay, that throughout this story that we've been talking about right now, Jay been with me the whole time. But yet he's not on my case. You feel me? But and the feds don't operate like that. You get what I'm saying? So you start to question things this way, like, wait a minute, how does this work? You know what I'm saying? If you tell me you had me under investigation for 10 years and me and this guy have been together for 90% of that, you know, and he's not in nothing, you know what I'm saying? Not saying that this is where you want him, but, you know, some things just don't add up when you start to look back at things, you feel me? So.
Could you go into detail of the story of you getting shot that involved Jay Z?
One day, random, you know, out of random, I usually never have him with me when I'm going to do a deal. And it just so happened, like, you know, randomly, I'm like, yo, we got a certain amount of cash on us. We shouldn't be going back out of town without nothing. That we should might as well grab something before we go out of town. And it just so happens, like, and this is why this game is not to be trusted. It doesn't matter how much money I had bought that connect, how long I've been dealing with that connect, but they set me up. So, you know, I go up, we ride up to Harlem, and then it was really you know, out of the blue because Jay had on lots of jewelry that day. And you know, and we just don't do stuff like that. And it's went and see the connects, and I sat in their house for a second and stuff, and got what I needed to get. And next you know, when it was time to leave, that gut feeling I talk about, when it was time to leave, the door closed instantly behind me, like too fast, like, you know what I'm saying? And when it did that, I just had a gut feeling that. And I looked outside and I seen two guys outside, like, waiting on us. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I got 400, I remember this, I got 490 grams of coke in my pants. And this guy got on a bunch of jewelry, and we got to get past these two guys that's outside waiting. You know, I already was on point. I told Jay to be on point, and when we got outside, you know, the guys was like, okay, you already know what it is. But they had it all planned in a way where I can push Jay away. And when I pushed Jay away and pushed him out the way for him to run, the guy didn't just like shoot me and like that. You know, he literally grabbed me, put it in my back, and shot me. You understand? And put it in my back and shot me. So now we tussling. I turn around, we tussling for the gun now. We tussling for it. And I'm fighting, and he's calling the other guy. He's calling his guy, yo, come back. And just so happened, man, I'm like, yo, I'm going to take my hand off his gun and just try to run. And when I took my hand off the gun, I ran. By the time I got 2 blocks down there where Jay was, I was so out of breath. And Jay was like, you all right? I heard the gun go off. You all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Everything is good, but my back hurt. You know what I'm saying? I feel in my back, like, and I kept reaching around in my back, and next I put my hand right in the hole. And I'm like Jay shot, bro. He like, get out of here. So we up 2 blocks, and then once I realized that, I started collapsing, and I'm laying on the floor, and I can remember looking upstairs, and the girls are like, you okay, baby? You all right? And I'm like, nah, I'm shot. You know what I'm saying?